Yo, what's going on, everybody? I just wanted to talk about the Outlanders for a second because, we have a full faction, and I think that, the devs are gonna start kind of like holding back, or not, maybe not holding back, but kind of like periodically releasing the Outlanders as they have with, other factions, and, which is probably why they're releasing a Viking. But that's not what this video is about. It's about talking about the Outlander lore and some of the problems that they have in the game. And they are my favorite characters. So while I get critical of them, they're probably one of my favorite faction in the game. So you know, keep that in mind. Um, and also at the same time, I'm gonna try to keep some objectivity to this, but we're all vulnerable to subjectivity. So you know, at the end of the day, this is just for fun, and I just wanted to kind of start a little discussion because I've seen others talk about the Outlanders and the problems with them, and I talk about that too, some of the problems that I've seen, but I have some other problems. Let's get on with the video, shall we? Alright, so one of the first problems that I've seen is that the devs don't give themselves enough time to fully explain what is happening. What I mean by that is when explaining an Outlander's home and what it is like, we don't get a chance to fully understand how it was. For example, how much do we know about the Ocelotto's home aside from it being an historical place, and not to mention, Frowner takes his liberties, which isn't a bad thing, but how much is it different from the real life counterpart? We already know that the character themselves are different from the real life counterpart, which I'll touch on in a second. But we know that it's destroyed because of Orcos, so that's already a differing factor of the real life counterpart. But it would be so cool to learn more about it, but I suppose we won't hear much of it because it's destroyed. They fucking destroyed that shit, and we probably won't hear much of it because there's not much to hear about it. Another example is the Shaolin hero skin. It has nothing to do with the Outlanders, but hear me out. The biggest problem with the story is context from what I read. So basically, if you don't know the story, basically Wukong comes down from the sky. He crash lands from heaven. He gets up, tries to find his peaches. In the midst of finding his peaches, people from heaven are coming down to chasing after him. He fights them. He wins. He tries to find his peaches again to feed his monkeys. Gets trapped under a mountain for like centuries. Gets helped out by this monk, and he hurries out to help the monk that saved him from the mountain to fight Bai Gujing, which is not explicitly said, but it's inferred. So, anyways, that's the story of a little summary of the story, just so that if you haven't read it, a little summary. But we get no context as to how he got to that point, other than despite the greedy gods and defeat his monkeys, and it leaves much untold, other than just to set up the story, for how he got to fighting Bai Gujing when you're playing the event, because that's where it leaves off. It's like, oh well, now he's helping the monk save the day type of thing, actually. And then so they focus more on that, other than, instead of actually trying to help people reading this story understand who the Monkey King was. The next thing that could be said or god damn it, I'm trying to read off a script. I'm sorry. This is kind of new to me, so I'm trying to, but anyways. That could be said about the Outlanders, as we don't know much about the Outlanders other than what is briefly mentioned about them. On the contrary, I do feel like they do explain Medjai and Ephira somewhat well. You don't have to like Ephira's lore, or even Medjai's lore, but I feel like they do a good job at explaining like how their people adapted to the results of the cataclysm. I can also say that about the Ocelotl too. They do touch on that, so gotta give credit where credit's due. They do do a good job about that. And most importantly, how they contribute to their respective cultures and societies, which they don't really explain a lot about that with the Ocelotl. So, you'll see that a lot of this is kind of criticizing more Ocelotl lore more than Ephira or Medjai's lore. More specifically, it's this because one, I don't really remember the Ephira's lore too well, so can't really criticize that if I don't remember it too well. And it's super hard to find lore on the internet. Like that's an entirely different flaw. But anyways, that's a little sidetrack. The Ocelotl, on the other hand, weren't really explained with enough details to let me know who they are other than hunters. Like what do we know about the Ocelotl other than they're hunters, and obviously what can be inferred about their historic counterpart. But then again, like I said before, how much of the Ocelotl really is the historical counterpart? They, like I said before, they do take their liberties, and that can be said about the other Outlanders too. How much is Medjai, similar to the actual real life Medjais? Well, as proof from their weapon, they do take their liberties, and like I said, it's not bad. I like that they take their liberties, but that just leaves more to be explained, because then, they take their liberties, and then it's like, okay, well, this is inspiration from the real life counterpart, but then, we're not really getting a whole lot more other than, yeah, this is a Medjai, or this is a, it's like a character inspired by the Mamelukes, but, you don't really get enough explained about, okay, well, how much different are they from the real life counterpart, other than what we can infer, but anyways, the last point I'll touch on in this little segment is the lore orders and, like the hero skin stories, and I think this is more specific to the point in large, because it's about lore orders having like 2 to 3 sentences to explain both, not at the same time, but explain who the Outlanders are and the events of the story, right? And there's about like 10 lore orders per like event, like, think about it for a second. There's like 10 something, like probably not 10, there's probably a little more, but think about it though, like, and it's just crazy to think about. Like, they have to explain who the Outlanders are, how they contribute to their society, who they are, and they have like 2 to 3 sentences explaining that, as well as 10 fucking little shits explaining about, okay, well, this is the Outlander, this is who they are, this is what they're about, this is their beliefs and values and stuff like that, and then also have to explain about the story, because obviously there's an ongoing story going on too, so they can't just focus on that specific thing, right? I think that's what they did with the Ocelotl, is they didn't necessarily focus too much on the Ocelotl, like who they were, and they focused more on the events of the story, They focused on like pushing that story forward, helping the player find out what happened after the after Mishkawato, the main Ocelotl, getting captured. What happened after he was freed? You know, they didn't really go into, or I mean, they also did focus on like before. You know, like what happened when the Ocelotl's home was attacked. But other than that, they didn't really focus on like, explaining who the Ocelotl were. But anyways, you know, and then you have like the hero skin stories, and they only have like 2 to 3 paragraphs per part, if that. It's been a little bit since I read the stories, but you know, you have, you know, a couple paragraphs to explain, you know, and then it goes on to the next part, and you still have like a couple paragraphs to, you know, and it's a very short story, you know. I think it would be cool if they really embraced that story side, you know, because it shows that they do want to do that with the lore and the hero skin lore. Like, they wouldn't make hero skin lore if they didn't think it cared, or they didn't care themselves, you know, especially with how, you know, low budget it seems they are. You know, they wouldn't put effort into explaining more than they have to, you know. You know, and then like they can use arcade too, put a lore tab in the game, you know, so that we don't have to like go on the internet and try to find, like, scour through hours and hours and hours of trying to find lore for the game. You know, like I said, arcade, you know, so that we can actually like see within the game the action, like not like a full out like cutscenes and everything like that, obviously, but you know, like maybe like, for example, make like a little scene with Ravier, and have us be the Afira to kind of tease them off, right? That'd be freaking cool, right? Obviously, like, arcades last for a week, so that shit would be freaking crazy, you know? Playing Afira for a week, being like, oh shit, this character's cool. Yeah, so it serves as teasing the character, and also like helping the player visualize what is going on in that particular scene, you know? But anyways, that's enough about that point. The next point is kind of, you know, it's kind of something that most people would resonate when talking about the Outlanders. It's the repetitive nature of introducing the Outlanders. It's not really a big problem for me, personally. Obviously, you know, it's tiresome seeing the same plot point over and over again, but, you know, if they can build something off of that, it's not too crazy, you know. But it obviously, you know, gets tiresome to see that same plot be used for all but Pirate, you know. Think about that. Pirate still is counted as an Outlander. Not many people see her as an Outlander. People see her as some, like, a Wulin or some shit like that, but she is still an Outlander. And while I don't really talk about Pirate a lot in this video, Pirate definitely is kind of the golden child when in this particular point, because she's the only Outlander that kind of laid siege onto Heathmore. Not like, you know, laid siege, but you know what I mean. Like, she's the one that like kind of introduced herself. Nobody went to the pirates' homeland, wherever that would be, so like some fucking abandoned island, and antagonized them or anything like that. No, a pirate came to Heathmore and, you know, laid out a full-on attack to get the treasures that they wanted, you know. Think about that, though. They could have done that for, you know, the Afira. They could have done that for the Ocelotl, because in the lore they said that the Ocelotl can sail due to pirates and other reasons. But, you know, this is one of the most common complaints I've seen on the Outlanders, and, you know, at a certain point I do have to agree with some people, you know. Like I said, it's not really one of my huge problems with, but it definitely is something that I do see a lot, right? And it's not like it's challenging to think of crazy ways to introduce foreign warriors to Heathmore, you know? Like I said, Pirate was a perfect example. Pirate came for her own personal reasons, and which was treasure, and that worked out great in my opinion. Like, you know, so they definitely can think of ways that aren't well, let's antagonize the Outlanders into coming so that people can feel bad about them. You know, it's like, you know, the amount of ideas you can come up with is quite insane. You know, it's plenty, and I think that's why it can be seen as lazy and frustrating to some, that they keep seeing a similar plot used over and over again. You know, I would be too. You know, it's crazy. Kind of going into like that repetitiveness. Not all the Outlanders have something to deal with Horkos. Like I said, the pirates had nothing to do with their arrival, and the Magi had nothing to do with their arrival. But the last two Outlanders did, Afira and Ocelotl, right? And I kind of want to touch on Horkos a little bit, because as someone who likes Horkos, it's kind of insulting. You know, it's kind of offensive that, you know, Horkos has been used as such a crutch to lean on. It's crazy, you know, because I still do like Horkos, right? Horkos is such a fun concept, playing with the original lore, and as well as Chimera, right? But, you know, and I also want to say that Horkos is they can do bad things. I'm not saying that they can't do bad things, right? Just because, you know, that's their identity. They're supposed to be doing bad things. They're the bad guy. But, you know, just, I don't know. Just when they, like, for example, Heresy, right? They slaughtered a whole bunch of random citizens, right? But they had a reason for that, because they wanted to spread terror so that they can get control, right? They also, you could also argue that they also wanted to kind of prevent the servants of the stakes from spreading, right? They didn't want to take any chances, right? And while obviously killing random civilians is, you know, bad, you know, it's like, okay, well, I can see why they did that. They didn't want to take any chances with them being servants of the stake. You know, people lie. And, you know, it also serves as a way to, you know, bolster Horkos' control, because it's like, you know, Horkos doesn't take any chances, you know. You know, it further spreads their tyranny, right? But anyways, the beauty of Horkos, like I just said, is that sometimes, you know, keep in mind, sometimes, they do morally questionable things while doing bad things. Like I said, obviously killing random civilians is bad, but at the same time, you know, or we can even go a step further and say, this last season, Vengeance with the Ocelotl, you know, they killed a whole bunch of innocent people living in the Ocelotl's home, but they did it for their own personal gain, right? They did it for gold, so that they can further reach or further accomplish their goals, right? So, you know, it's obviously that's more of like a cut and dry, that's definitely bad, you know, that's selfish, you know, why would you do something like that? So maybe not the best example, but you know, you see what I'm trying to say, you know. They did do things that I feel like maybe could be put into like a morally questionable type of thing, and just couldn't be summed up to, man, it's just bad guys doing bad things, you know. Which is why people fell in love with Apollyon so much, you know. Think about it. People like Apollyon because she did do bad things. She's most definitely a bad person, right? but her actions weren't bad because they were bad, right? They had some meaning behind it. You know, she thought she was doing the right thing because of how she lived her life and what she was kind of taught and reinforced in her life, right? Um, and that's what drew me into Horkos. Horkos, you know, having that idea, it's freaking sick. You know, be like, damn, these people are trying to follow in Apollyon's footsteps. You know, and then kind of continue her legacy. That's crazy, man. Like, I'm 100% for Horkos, you know, and then like the aesthetics and stuff like that also. But you know, the lore is also pretty cool too. And then I felt like they kind of slowly, just kind of diverged away from that, and just, you know, kind of made it this, it's a bad guy. Look at this bad guy doing bad guy things. Like, kind of bringing in the Ocelotl season again. Them just like laughing at people and killing children and stuff like that. Like, you know, I don't think that that's something that you know, something that Horkos would do. You know, I think that it's just something that they did to evoke like emotion from, like, ah man, that's crazy. Why would Horkos do that? Justice for the Ocelotl. Why would you do something like that? That shit is trash. I want justice for the Ocelotl. And, you know, rightfully so, people did want that. It's like, ah, damn, that's crazy. Horkos was trash, you know. But, you know, I don't know, I don't feel like Horkos would do something like that, you know. It doesn't make any sense, right? All the other stuff kind of makes sense in that season, kinda. But, anyways, that's a little rant about Horkos. But, you know, digressing and stuff like that. The creativity for the Outlanders to a lot of people just wasn't there, you know. And I feel like that's one of the things, if people pay attention to the lore, for those who do pay attention to the lore, I should say, kind of drew them away from the Outlanders, you know. And the others obviously just didn't have fun with them. But the next point I do want to touch on, and this isn't my biggest point, but it's you know, something I do want to touch on just because some people might not know, is kind of what I want to consider hidden lore, even though it's not really hidden. But what I mean by that is like just like some lore on the like official website, which I'll try to link into the description so that you can go check that out if you really care. But when you go into the front website, you can learn more about like a couple of the Outlanders' weapons. So like Medjai, Fira, Ocelotl. I think it's only those characters. But you can also learn about the character themselves. It's not just the Outlanders too. You can learn about like the Warden and stuff like that. You know, but you can learn about like different little things about the characters and stuff like that. But they also put like some information that maybe isn't said in the game. Like for example, there's some information about the Ocelotl, about them focusing, like delving more into blood rituals and stuff like that, after the Cataclysm, and also like stealing the other civilizations that had fallen around them after the Cataclysm, stealing their resources. Just like little stuff like that you know, you don't know. Like for example, one of the Medjai's weapons talked about, I think it's called Venomous Treachery, where it talks about a Medjai who betrayed like his oaths and stuff like that and tried to kill the pharaoh, right? Just little cool things like that, that a lot of people just don't know, right? It's just cool little crazy things that, you know, maybe people might not know about. But I did want to put this in the video because, you know, it's something that, you know, some people just aren't aware of, right? Or just don't care about. But, you know, some people who do care about the lore are like, ah, well, why aren't the Ocelotl really into like blood rituals and stuff like that? They are. It just isn't like talked about in this game lore. They, like I said, the Ocelotl, they focused more about like the events in the story. They really try to, like, you know, kind of hide that, and that's why I kind of consider this part hidden lore. But anyways, and I'll put up a picture too, just so you can see the lore of what I'm talking about. But anyways, I gotta get into the conclusion of the what I'm talking about. So, anyways, in conclusion, the Outlanders do have flaws. Some of which I touched on. It wasn't a lot, like, and others that I didn't touch on. I'm very new to like doing these like type of videos, like kind of video essays and stuff like that. But I try my best, and it kind of helps me out. But regardless, they are a welcome addition to the game as they add variety and new character possibilities to the game. And like I said before, they're one of my favorite factions in the game. Like, I love how different they are. I love how, like, they don't have anything to do with each other. It's unique to the game. But if you like the video, give it a like. If you don't like it and dislike it, tells me that I did something wrong. And if you like it, also add to the comments. Be like, yo, what's going on? What are you doing? I like that you did this. If you don't like it, do the same thing. What are you doing? Why the fuck did you do that? Change this, please. Obviously, constructive criticism, so that I can actually, use this as a way to, improve myself and stuff like that. But, like I said, I'm new to this type of video and stuff like that. But like I said, it helps me. It helps me get better at making essays and stuff like that, because I'm terrible at making essays and I gotta get better at that. But, also, like, reading it out loud and making it sound like I'm not reading it off of a of a piece of paper or my phone. But anyways, like I said, if you like the video, like it, dislike it. If you dislike it, share it, please. If you like it and you want to spread this around, please spread it around. I'm trying to put more videos out there. If you have any suggestions for like any types of games, I'll probably put polls up to you to be like, oh, should I play this game or this game? But yeah, I'm trying to make more videos. I'm talking really fast because I'm running out of time. But I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good time. See you later, bro.